Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I am your host and CEO of VitalityOET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as they start going through perimenopause and onwards. We know that you go through so many changes in this part of your life, whether that be hot flashes and night sweats, irritability and brain fog, and of course, weight gain around the middle that seems to have come out of absolutely nowhere. So you go back to cutting calories, cutting carbs, doing a ton of cardio, yet nothing seems to be working and you end up feeling worse, and the scale even ends up going in the wrong direction. But we know now that your body is inherently different than it was prior to these hormonal changes that you're experiencing. So our goal here at Vitality is to help you understand what happens to your body in this time of your life, so you can finally live a life full of vitality, reach your health and fitness goals, and really understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So for today's topic, I wanted to talk about the most common types of hormonal disruptors, or the things that are causing your hormones to become imbalanced. I'm going to cover the 4 biggest natural hormonal disruptors and the 4 chemical hormonal disruptors. There are other ones, but I wanted to cover the main ones so you can really understand how to reduce exposure and how to set yourself up for success for hormonal harmony so you can finally be able to lose weight and actually feel good again and like yourself. So I wanted to talk about first what the hormone production system is like. It's called our endocrine system. It's a network of hormone producing glands throughout your body. And as we know, proper hormone production and balance plays a huge role in not only how our body functions, how we feel, and how it looks. So it affects everything in your body. Hormones really dictate everything. So the way I like to think about hormonal balance is imagine a Jenga tower. It's that block game where you have 3 blocks and then they crisscross over and over, making a tower. When the Jenga tower is all set up at the beginning, it can withstand quite a bit of stress. You can press on it and it won't topple over. When we start going through perimenopause and menopause, estrogen and progesterone start to go down. So we see a few little holes in this tower. It's not quite as resilient to stress. But when our hormones really get out of balance, it's like we keep pulling more and more and more of these blocks out of this Jenga tower. And now it doesn't take much for that Jenga tower to topple over. It's not as resilient to stress. And what are these stressors that I'm talking about? I'm talking about, your low calorie intake. You're cutting your carbs. You're doing a ton of cardio. You're not sleeping enough. You're rushing around. You're skipping meals, having coffee on an empty stomach, having financial stress, family stress, taking care of sick people, going through trauma and grief. All of these things are stress. So as our hormones start to go into an imbalance and that Jenga tower becomes less and less resilient to stress, it really doesn't take much for the whole system to topple over. And there are certain environmental substances that have the potential to affect our endocrine system by really interfering with normal functions or production of hormones, again, making that Jenga tower a lot less resilient to stress. These are known as endocrine disruptors. These substances have the ability to either increase or decrease production of certain hormones. Some of these substances can be found in household products, plastics, personal care products like fragrances and perfumes, food storage containers, water, and even food itself. So the thing about hormonal disruptors is that they can scramble the message that natural hormones transfer between cells. Usually hormones bind to hormone receptors like a lock and key. So a hormone is like the key, the hormone receptor is like a lock. Okay, so then when the key goes into the lock, it sends a message to other cells or organs on how they are supposed to behave, what they're supposed to produce, and how the body functions in general. However, hormone disruptors can really interfere with this process, and some can even mimic different hormones and bind to the receptors. So it's a different key that goes into the lock, but doesn't quite work perfectly, and it ends up sending the wrong message to our body, or it can even block communication processes altogether, which we do not want. So the first thing that I do want to mention here is that the dosage is what determines the toxin, not the compound itself. Just like too much water can actually be harmful and cause death. Yes, this has actually happened in my hometown. There was a radio show that did a water drinking competition, and someone actually passed away from it. But we don't think as water is being harmful or toxic to us. It all has to do with dosage. So the things that I'm talking about here aren't meant to scare you and to get you to like eliminate a bunch of things from your life. It's just to bring awareness of the dangers of excessive exposure so you can reduce things wherever you can slowly to really set you up for hormonal harmony. Your health is very complex. There is no formula that exists that can determine the exact effects of hormone disruptors and how they will affect our health. Research does indicate that the effects depend on the potency of the chemical, the dose of the chemical, the timing of exposure, how long you are exposed for, as well as your overall health, which is going to be shaped by genetics, your diet, your exercise habits, racial and economic disparities, access to healthcare, stress exposure, and tons of other factors that I will cover here today. So again, this doesn't mean that you should try and avoid all the things I'm going to talk about today, but being aware and reducing exposure where possible can really help you mitigate any negative side effects that you can be having from that. So first, we're going to talk about four of the biggest hormonal disruptors that occur naturally, so natural hormone disruptors. And then I'm going to talk about 4 chemical hormonal disruptors. So we're going to start with the natural stuff first. And of course, number 1, dun, 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 is going to be stress, aka cortisol. I have spoken about stress so much, you guys. We know that when we're in a stress state, it's supposed to be temporary. We're in a car accident, stress goes up, cortisol goes up, helps us to fight or flight, helps us keep us alive and safe. And then post-event, it's supposed to come down. However, this is not the case in regular life. We are in a constant state of chronically stressed out. We're always exhausted. We're always overworked and burnt out. And that is fight or flight. This is not eating enough food, not eating enough carbs, not doing the right kinds of exercise. So you're pushing yourself too hard with HIIT and cardio. You're not getting enough good quality sleep. You wake up feeling exhausted. You're skipping meals. You're having caffeine on an empty stomach. You're dealing with your cat pooping in your bed. That literally happened to us 2 days ago because Mosquito is trying to prove a point that she does not appreciate having Winifred as our new kitty in the household. She doesn't like having a little sister. It's financial stresses. It's grief from losing a parent. It's having to take care of others who are getting sick. You're dealing with stressors and jerks at work and hard-pressed deadlines. You're rushing your kids around. You're eating on the run. We're go, 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 go. And that is stress. And then cutting your calories, carbs, and doing a ton of exercise is just adding stress on top of stress on top of stress, which just keeps cortisol pulsating through our body like crazy. And what happens when cortisol is very high or stays high for too long is eventually it will peter out and it will get very low. But we still need to help support a healthy cortisol production. We want it to be higher in the morning and slowly decrease during the day. But when cortisol levels are left rampant for too long, what happens is we see a negative effect on estrogen. We see a negative effect on progesterone. Progesterone actually can't be produced in the presence of cortisol because it steals the precursor that we need in order to produce progesterone. We see a decrease in testosterone. We see an imbalance in our androgen levels, leading to things like PCOS type symptoms. It can lead to estrogen dominance when our progesterone tanks too quickly from being able to be produced because cortisol is too high. We see that our thyroid function starts to slow down when cortisol is high. And our thyroid is really important. We know that women are 80% more likely than men to develop hypothyroidism, especially once they hit perimenopause and menopause. And if our cortisol levels are high because we're constantly stressed out, our risk increases substantially. And when we become hypothyroid or our thyroid function starts to decrease, it's like our thermostat of our body, which tells us how many calories we burn at rest. So that our body becomes really crappy at burning calories, which leads to you feeling exhausted and fatigued. You're not able to sleep well. If you do sleep, you wake up, doesn't matter how much you're sleeping, you're still exhausted. And it makes it really hard to lose weight if our body sucks at burning calories. So we want to make sure that we're maintaining a healthy thyroid function. And we know that during perimenopause and menopause, when estrogen's going down, we have a hard time building and maintaining muscle mass. When cortisol goes up, it actually breaks down muscle for energy. We know that when estrogen goes down, we have a harder time regulating our blood sugars. When cortisol goes up, it also makes that worse. We know that we start experiencing more inflammation, which leads to gut health issues. When cortisol goes up, it also makes that worse. It slows down digestion, leading to bloating further on throughout the day. But you can see how all these elevated levels of cortisol really affect so many areas in our body and all the hormones in our body. which is really, really important to be aware of. So unless you are willing to address stress, and that doesn't mean that you can remove stressors from your life, that's not realistic, but doing whatever you can to buffer stress is really important. Think about that Jenga tower. So before estrogen and progesterone went down and everything was lined up so nicely, you could handle a 9 out of 10 of pressure, let's say, of stress before that tower will topple over. Now, when estrogen and progesterone go down, we see more holes in that tower. Now it's only a 5 out of 10 that is required stress to really increase cortisol and make everything fall apart. So we have to think about stress control so much more once you start going through perimenopause and menopause, because we don't have those hormones to buffer. And then if cortisol stays high, that Jenga tower just keeps getting pulled apart, making you even less resilient to stress, which is why spilled milk can make you cry, why you're so exhausted, why you're so moody, why all of a sudden you're just so angry and you don't feel like yourself anymore. That's what this is, you guys. So addressing stress is so important. This is why how we buffer this is going to be by eating enough foods, eating enough carbs. And yes, we have a harder time dealing with blood sugar control when estrogen goes down. But if we're not getting enough carbs, cortisol is going to go up anyways, because carbs lower cortisol levels. So even if you're not having carbs, cortisol is just going to keep dumping blood into your bloodstream anyways. So have your carbs, and eating them properly is going to help decrease stress on your body substantially. Doing something for just 5 minutes a day to help bring that stress response down, to lower your heart rate, to lower your breathing, to get you into that rest and digest portion of your nervous system. These are all so important. And then learning how to exercise properly. So hormonal disruptor, natural number 1, biggest one of all time, is going to be stress. Number 2 is yo-yo dieting. So this is where we cut our calories really aggressively and then we fall off the wagon and then go back to eating quote unquote normal and we jump up really high. Then we try the next diet, which is fasting, which also decreases our calories a ton. And then we go back to eating normally. And again, that's a yo-yo diet. Then we try cutting our carbs and doing keto. That also cuts calories. And then you go back to eating normal. So it's up and down, up and down, up and down from all these different crazy crash diets and things that you've done. That's incredibly stressful on your body. It makes it really hard to lose fat as well. And it's going to throw your hormones out of whack. It's going to throw off your appetite hormones, your hunger hormones, estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, thyroid, you name it. They're all going to be affected because cortisol is going to go up and is going to affect everything else in your body. So the way I like to think about this is think about a relationship. And we've all had probably one relationship that this sounds kind of similar to. And if you haven't, bless your heart, you are so, so lucky. But think about a relationship where you're kind of walking on eggshells. You don't know what to anticipate from your partner. You don't know if saying something one day will really upset them, or if they're going to be fine with it, if they're going to be open-minded or closed-minded, if they're going to snap at you, if they're going to be over dramatic, if you know what I mean. Like you don't know what to anticipate. So you're constantly playing defense. You're very nervous and on edge. Your body is the same way when you keep yo-yo dieting all over the place. And one day you might have 1,200 calories, the next you might have 2,000. Then we drop back to like 13, and then we're at 18, and we're just all over the place. It's very stressful on our body. It's the same thing. Whereas imagine you're in a very healthy relationship. You know your partner's going to be supportive. They're genuinely open-minded. They care about you. They support you. They're not going to bite your head off or take things out on you that didn't have anything to do with you. You know what to anticipate. It's more relaxed. Your body is the same way when it's getting consistent calorie intake in. It's relaxed. It's going to allow you to have a better body composition because it's not as stressed out. And when we're not as stressed out and cortisol isn't going crazy, we have less inflammation. We have less bloating. We have less fluid retention. Our hunger normalizes. These are all things that are going to help you a lot, as well as their blood sugar. You're not going to be reaching for sugary treats and chips and stuff like that. It's going to be so much easier. And not to mention yo-yo dieting really messes with our thyroid function, which we already talked about is a huge issue. And this is why fasting is not beneficial for most women, because it increases that stress response. There was actually a study that was just released not that long ago. Thank goodness that was finally done in women who were of menopausal age. And fasting was shown to increase their resting cortisol levels throughout the day. So again, that's going to affect your hormonal balance, making it really hard on your body to be able to lose weight. And plus, you're not going to feel good. So we covered stress. We covered yo-yo dieting. Now we have in general just too low of calorie intake. I talk to women every day, every single day. I get people that track their food, telling where they're at, eating 1,000 calories, 1,200 calories, 1,600 calories. And for most women, that's not anywhere near enough. You guys, I'm 145-ish pounds to 150 pounds, depending where I am in my cycle. And just if I've had a hard workout, if I've had salt, all those kinds of things. I'm 5'5" and 145 pounds. I only work out like 2 days a week, and I eat 2,200 to 2,400 calories to maintain my weight. To lose weight, I eat 1,900. If I drop below that, I start gaining weight. It's too much of a stress response for me. So if you are taller than I am, if you're more active than I am, if you are having a lot of stress and poor sleep, if you weigh heavier than I do, all those things are going to influence you to have to eat more. So 1,600 calories isn't enough. And when our body isn't getting enough calories in, it cannot function properly, and it starts taking away non-essential things. So eating too little is a main contributor of hormonal imbalance. So just like a car without a full gas tank, a body cannot run efficiently when you're not getting enough food day to day. Low calorie intake slows down everything in our body, not just including the communication between our brain and our organs, but digestion, absorption of nutrients, which also then slows down the function of your body in other capacities. So when you're not eating enough, your body really has to decide where to use its limited amount of energy on. So it starts that non-essential function. So for example, let's say you get laid off from work or your hours get cut. You have to start relocating or reallocating your money for, okay, make sure I have enough for what I need. And you start taking it away from things that are non-essential. So maybe you're not getting your hair done as often, or you're not getting your nails done as often, or maybe you're not taking that trip anymore. And you're really making sure that you are able to put money where you need it, like your mortgage and your food. So our body does the exact same thing when we're not getting enough calories in. And unfortunately, you know what's not essential? Hair. Doesn't really care if your hair is thick and luscious. The hair will start thinning and falling out. And this is due to a decrease in hormonal production. Estrogen and progesterone, it makes you feel great when you have them. But guess what? You can survive without them. You won't feel great, but it's doable. Same with testosterone. It'll start breaking down muscle mass because that's not essential either. So then you start having a higher body fat percentage. And that's already happening during perimenopause and menopause. When estrogen and progesterone go down, we have a harder time building and maintaining muscle. We're going to see that our energy starts to decrease. Blood sugar control decreases. Inflammation increases. Gut health starts going sideways. Our bone density decreases. Those things aren't essential, which sucks. So if you're not eating enough food, you can't expect to look and feel good because your body cannot function properly. And unfortunately, those things are non-essential. And again, when we have that low calorie intake, cortisol increases, and that's negatively affecting blood sugar control, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, your androgens. Everything in your body becomes negatively affected. So if you think your calorie intake probably isn't that low, I probably challenge you. Message me and I will help you calculate it for free. I do that for everyone who messages me. No questions asked, no strings attached. I just want to help you really understand how to take care of yourself and improve your health. And that's going to help you everywhere. Better being able to be present with your family, being able to have energy to do the things that you want to do, be more productive at work, really enjoy life, sleep better again, and really understand how to take care of you, because that's going to help you save time in doctor's offices and medications and things like that. So if you want your calories calculated, you guys, just message me. I will always, 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 always answer. I will always do that for you. No questions asked. So if you want to figure out where your calories should be, just message me. So we covered stress, yo-yo dieting, and low calorie intake. Those three are pretty hand in hand. Now we have 4, which is gut health or constipation. So bowel movements are actually a huge, huge way, one of the primary ways actually, that our body helps detox hormones and metabolites, help them get out of the body, as well with urine and sweat, but predominantly through our bowel movements. So when we are constipated, what actually happens is our body will reabsorb the toxins that are in our poop, basically. It'll reabsorb them, including hormones, leading to hormonal imbalances. This is actually super common with estrogen dominance. If you are someone who is estrogen dominant and you're not going to the bathroom regularly, that is something that we need to address quite quickly, and it can actually solve most of your issues, which is phenomenal. So again, also making sure that you're having enough water to help you with your bowel movements too is super important. But another thing I want to talk about with poor gut health as well is that it leads to lower nutrient absorption, which will prevent the body from functioning at an efficient rate and preventing the hormone production chain where certain nutrients aren't present in the body. So, for example, B vitamins are notoriously really hard to absorb, especially with poor gut health, and are crucial in the hormone production pathway for estrogen and progesterone. So, if you're low in B vitamins, that's a problem. And if you've been on hormonal birth control, we're naturally depleted of our B vitamins. So taking a B complex of 50 is a great way to help with your hormone production pathways for progesterone and estrogen in particular. But if your gut health is poor, you can be taking supplements, but nothing changes because your body can't actually absorb it. So this is where people are like taking a ton of supplements. They go and take their blood work and stuff like that again, and then there's no changes in the levels. It's because we need to address your gut health. And the inadequate removal and then reabsorption of toxins is a major stress on our body, especially your brain and other high fat organs where toxins love to live because they love to live in fat. So something that people don't really think too much of, like, okay, like I only poop like 1 to 3 times a week, not a big deal, I feel fine. No, it is a really big major red flag actually, and it's something that you must improve upon to support your body and your hormones. And a thing with gut health, people are like, I've tried this, I've tried that, and it's not working. And this. Have you tried eating enough food? Have you tried lowering your stress? Have you tried eating carbs? Because carbs have fiber and it helps lower our cortisol. Because what happens is, again, like we talked about, when estrogen and progesterone go down, it takes a lot less stress for cortisol to come up. But what happens when cortisol goes up is it really affects our gut health. It makes the blood go away from our gut into our arms and legs to fight the bear or run away from the bear because we're in fight or flight, whether we accept it or not. So then our gut health really takes a turn because digestion is really slow. It takes so much longer for things to pass through our body because we don't have enough blood flow going to our gut to help us contract the gut to help keep things moving along, breaking things down, absorbing stuff. So then what happens is things accumulate in our gut. And if you think of your gut lining as your fingers interlocking together, we get more and more inflammation because this also happens when cortisol goes up and it slows down our gut function. So double whammy there. So then the walls of our gut get inflamed and our fingers start to spread apart. Now we have these little holes where particles can go through where they're not supposed to. And it goes into our bloodstream, which again, it's not supposed to, leading to food sensitivities that you never had before, or allergies, or even autoimmune conditions because your body views it as a foreign substance because it's somewhere where it's not supposed to be. So your immune system is working really, really hard to try and fight these things, making it so that you get sick a lot easier. It takes a lot longer to recover. And again, that's not good. And as long as inflammation goes up, cortisol keeps going up and keeps causing issues everywhere else in your body. So making sure that we have a healthy gut is super important. And the number one step that we do with most women when they come into our program is do some sort of de-stressing routine, at least for 5 minutes, eating more food and eating enough carbs so you have enough fiber to lower that cortisol as well. And it will do wonders. You will be surprised. We have women in our program who have colitis and they forget that they even have it now because their gut has never been healthier. Because stress, again, has to be addressed, and getting enough food and having enough carbs is a huge part of that. So those are the 4 main natural hormonal disruptors. We have stress, we have yo-yo dieting, we have low calorie intake, and we have our gut health. Most people are going to say, I am screwed in all 4. If you address stress by eating enough food, eating enough carbs, and doing some de-stressing and really monitoring things in your life that way, it will make all the others so much better. So again, if you need help calculating that, message me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm always more than happy to do that. Or you can just book a consultation call in the show notes below. Always, always, always happy just to do it face to face. I find it a lot easier sometimes just to answer your questions in real time. I can ask you questions because sometimes a messenger can take a while just because there's so many people who message me. But again, I will always get back to you no matter what. So now we're going into the chemical compounds that are hormonal disruptors. And the first one I want to talk about is BPAs. These are used in the production of certain plastics and resins. BPAs have been found in the lining of canned goods and other food packaging, as well as plastic containers for food storage. It's also even been found in cash register receipts and certain types of plastic water bottles. BPA has been linked to an increased risk of cancers, as well as fertility issues and obesity. Many large organizations have warned against the heating of plastics in the microwave, even BPA-free ones, just because there is always a risk of releasing BPAs into your food. As well, in women, BPAs can mimic estrogens and really interfere with estrogen receptors. So remember we talked about the lock and key? BPAs pretend to be estrogen, so they're a different key. They go into the lock and really interfere with your estrogen production. It actually tells your body to stop producing estrogen and can cause cell changes as the body reacts with the BPAs instead of natural estrogen. This can not only make symptoms of perimenopause worse or actually put you into perimenopause early, but it can really disrupt fertility and the natural hormone cycle as well. So that is something to be aware of. Remember that low levels of estrogen will lower your stress threshold, right? So lower estrogen, there's more holes in that Jenga tower, making it a lot easier for cortisol to go up, and it takes a lot less stress for everything to topple over. BPAs have also been shown to increase unwanted androgen levels in women. So this is very, very similar to PCOS type symptoms. I did a podcast on that earlier, so you can go and listen to that one. So how do we reduce your exposure to BPAs? 1, opt for email receipts whenever possible instead of paper receipts. Do not heat canned foods in the can. Always transfer them to a pot or a bowl. Opt for fresh, frozen, or dried fruits wherever you can. So as opposed to using canned when you can. Really avoid putting hot foods in plastic containers. Wait until food has completely cooled if you only have plastic containers. But again, if you can, opt for glass or ceramic whenever possible. And don't ever heat those foods in plastic containers. Really easy, simple ways that, again, are affordable and don't take much to decrease your exposure to those. Number 2 are phthalates. Phthalates are plastic chemicals found in some fragrances, PVC plastic, toys, and plastic wrap. They are often called plasticizers, so you can see that on the ingredient lists if you want to pay attention to that. Research has suggested that phthalates prevent proper sexual development in babies and children. In large amounts, they have found to be detrimental to our overall health in general, and they can be found in many products that are associated with plastics or packaged or delivered in plastics. So while phthalates do have a short half-life, like our body is pretty good at detoxing them compared to other chemicals, chronic exposure over time can cause them to build up in your system that is difficult for your body to get rid of. And remember, if you're someone who has lots of high stress, your cortisol is really high, you're dealing with gut health issues, our body is so busy, like our immune system is on high alert because it's really trying to fight off the things getting through our gut lining, that then it can take a lot more to detox, or like things can build up a lot easier because our body can't fight off and detox these phthalates that are making itself into our bodies. So at the hormonal level, the buildup of phthalates can really modify the release of pituitary and peripheral hormones. So these are things like acetylcholine, cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, androgens, and it's been shown to even change gene expression associated with reproductive health. So how the body actually uses your sex hormones. This has a detrimental effect more so on developing trival. What does that word even mean? This has detrimental effects more so on developing children. However, it can be seen in adults as well. And some studies show that phthalate metabolites even lead to decreased testosterone in women by blocking testosterone production and the receptors. So again, it's that key that goes into that lock and it's telling your body to stop producing testosterone instead of continuing to. And excessive phthalate exposure has even been linked to cardiovascular disease and early death. And we don't want to see our testosterone levels go down. And this is because when estrogen goes down, we have a harder time building and maintaining muscle mass. So testosterone kind of jumps in to help us a bit. But if testosterone goes down, then we see an even harder time building and maintaining muscle mass, which means we see our weight go down, but it's because of muscle loss. Then we have a higher body fat percentage than we did before. So we actually might be lighter, but we have a worse body composition than we did before. So how can we avoid excess exposure to phthalates? Steer clear of products that list phthalates on the ingredients or have fragrance as an ingredient. And I'm not expecting you to not wear perfumes or deodorants or things like that because that's not realistic. But again, avoiding exposure where you are able to is awesome. Try to avoid using plastic wrap. Oh my goodness, you guys. Try to avoid using plastic wrap or plastic food containers that contain PVC aim for glass or stainless steel food storage containers instead. Those plastic containers will have a label 3 for the recycling in the USA. So if you are looking at plastic containers, if it has that number 3 in the recycling symbol, that has phthalates in it. So it's an easy way to look for it. Another thing to do is reduce fast food consumption, because there are studies that show that people who ate high levels of fast food were found to have higher levels of phthalates in their blood. And this is just because of the extensive use of plastic that is used to produce and store fast foods. Again, you're also going to have other benefits from avoiding fast foods in terms of like very high fat content and salt and just not as many whole foods, right? Which can affect our digestion as well. So that's a double bonus there to try and decrease your consumption of fast food. And then again, as always, do not reheat food or beverages in plastic containers. Always put them in pots or dishes for reheating, always. I'm going to also link 2 links in the show notes here that show you some phthalate-free cleaning products, because that's where they're found quite often, as well as cosmetics too. So that way, when you're done something, you can see if there's something you want to replace it with. Because if you try and get rid of everything at once and buy like phthalate-free cleaning products and things like that are less toxic, that gets expensive pretty quick. So as your, let's say, laundry detergent runs out, then you can look and see if there's one that is like safer, and just do that slowly over time and replace things so it's less costly. And again, it's not necessary, but it is a good way to just be aware of what has the highest like toxins and exposure. The next one is atrazine. So atrazine is one of the most commonly applied herbicide in the world. It's often used to control weeds in corn, sugarcane crops, as well as golf course turf. And it's been used on evergreen tree farms to help evergreen tree regrowth. It also helps keep railways and highways clear of weeds, and used in other countries like for pineapple and macadamia nut crops as well. It's been shown to have adverse effects on women, leading to the possible development of estrogen-related cancers, tumors, and other cancers like leukemia as well. In the body, it has been shown to increase the conversion of our testosterone to estrogens, leading to low testosterone levels in women pre-menopause and causing worse side effects post-menopause, when testosterone levels are actually supposed to come back up to buffer when estrogen and progesterone go down. Okay, so atrazine can also give many women symptoms of estrogen dominance, as it disrupts the balance of estrogen and progesterone in the blood, disrupting communication signals from balancing hormone production. It has also been shown to stimulate the production of prolactin and androgens other than testosterone, potentially leading to worse androgen dominance. So basically what that all means is it really messes up our estrogen and progesterone, and it also leads to estrogen dominance or PCOS type-like symptoms. And then this can all lead to muscle loss and fatigue down the road because of those hormonal changes if you have prolonged exposure. The good thing is that many areas in North America have been working to really reduce atrazine exposure over the years. That being said, your risk does go up a lot if you're in agriculture areas like the Midwest in the US or the prairies like I am in Canada. So ways to decrease exposure to this is just avoid areas where it's used. So be really aware of residential parks and natural areas as well. Most places are starting to put up signs if it's being used. So that's something to be aware of, which is awesome. Avoid drinking unfiltered tap water if you have access to filtered water. Wash your fruits and veggies before eating. And since atrazine is absorbed through the skin as well as when we ingest it, avoid lying on grasses or areas where it's been sprayed. So don't roll around on the golf course. I doubt you're doing that anyways. That's not great etiquette from what I'm told, but just don't do that. And the last thing I want to talk about is phytoestrogens. This is not because they cause harm, but because they're still considered a hormone disruptor. Phytoestrogens are estrogen-like compounds derived from plants. That being said, research has found that phytoestrogens can be both estrogen and anti-estrogenic depending on the food and the person consuming them. There is some evidence to suggest that the natural occurring phytoestrogens derived from plant material may actually have some benefits on menopausal symptoms and the risk of breast cancer, cardiovascular disease, and osteoporosis, which is awesome. Phytoestrogens have been shown to be beneficial for many women in menopause. So if you haven't tried them yet for your symptoms, it might be worth giving it a try. They're typically most found in soy products, so I can't have that because I'm allergic. But if you can have soy, things like tofu, tempeh, edamame, soy milk are all great options, as well as flax seeds, beans and lentils, sesame seeds, and garlic. So I know this is a lot of information on hormonal disruptors and what causes your hormonal imbalances. So I just want to review everything a little bit quickly here. But I want you to be aware that high stress responses really affect your body. High circulating cortisol will not only lower your immunity and defense against harmful chemicals, it will also slow down your body's ability to detox harmful substances out. So this may allow compounds to really build up in your system that wouldn't have harmed you otherwise. So the takeaway here is still that if you can't control your stress response, then anything you do outside of that probably isn't going to be as beneficial. So things that cause hormonal imbalances: stress. Eat enough food, eat enough carbs, adjust your exercise accordingly. If you need that calculated, message me. Yo-yo dieting. We're not doing that anymore. Low calorie intake. We're not doing that anymore. Gut health. We want to be pooping every day. We want to avoid BPAs, so avoid receipts and reheating food in plastic containers. Atrazine, we're not rolling around on golf courses anymore. Wash your fruits and veggies. When we're talking about phthalates, avoiding the recycling number 3 where you can. And then again, try and include some phytoestrogens into your diet. Again, those links for the assessing the toxicity and like clean products for you are in the show notes. And again, if you want your calories calculated, you guys, message me, book a consultation call. Either way works. I'm always happy to do this. No strings attached. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know. Have a great rest of your day and talk to you soon. Bye.